Money isn't paper, it's power. And if you don't master it, it will master you. People don't respect how much you spend. They respect how much you control. Fortune is not kind to the wasteful. It bends only to the disciplined. Money is not just currency. It is influence, power, and perception. A pile of coins, a balance in your account, a piece of paper with numbers on it. These things by themselves are worthless. What gives them weight is the belief others attach to them, the meaning society agrees upon. If you hold money, you hold a silent authority, because people do not merely see numbers, they see possibility. They see doors opening. They see problems solved. They see comfort, security, and a future. That is why money commands respect, even before a word is spoken. Think of this. The same words spoken by a poor man and a rich man are not heard the same. One is dismissed, the other is considered, not because truth is different, but because perception is different. People see wealth as proof, as validation, as evidence that your decisions carry weight. Machiavelli understood this. Fortune creates the appearance of wisdom, even if wisdom is absent. Influence is not always about who is right, but about who looks untouchable, who appears strong, and wealth creates that armor. Power is never free-floating. It attaches itself to something: armies, titles, reputations, and very often money. A man with resources can buy time, can buy loyalty, can buy silence, and sometimes even buy history itself. And yet, the cunning know that money works best, not when it is scattered foolishly, but when it is deployed like a weapon. Power grows not in the possession of wealth, but in the control of its flow. Perception is perhaps the most dangerous aspect of money, for money has the ability to disguise weakness as strength and to make mediocrity appear as genius. People believe in what they can see and count, and so wealth becomes a mask of credibility. This is why men go into debt to appear rich, why rulers empty treasuries to stage glory, why individuals bankrupt themselves for status symbols. They chase perception, not reality. And yet, perception has its own power. If others believe you are wealthy, they often treat you as if you are. If others believe you are poor, they will treat you as if you are powerless, even if you hold wisdom greater than kings. Money bends society. It changes how voices are heard, how doors are opened, how laws are written. With wealth, your shadow stretches farther than your presence. Without it, even your shout is an echo, fading in the dark. But here is the paradox. Money itself has no voice, no strength, no intention. It is a tool, an instrument. It is the hand that holds it, and the mind that directs it, that give it meaning. Therefore, to think of money as only paper or metal is to be blind to its true nature. It is influence. It makes others listen. It is power. It creates the means to act. It is perception. It changes the way the world sees you before you even speak. This is why the wise do not chase money only for comfort. They seek it for what it can command. For money is not the goal, it is the lever, and those who master it can move the world. Do you want me to continue expanding this thread into a second part, showing how discipline and restraint transform this influence into lasting power? You said, please expand. Wealth must be managed with discipline, or it will control you. In paragraph of 900 words. Don't add any heading. Answer in chat. ChatGPT said, wealth must be managed with discipline, or it will control you. At first, this may sound like a simple warning, but within it lies one of the hardest truths about human nature. Money has a peculiar power. It bends the will of those who believe they are bending it. Without discipline, without order, money does not remain a servant, it becomes a master. And when it does, it governs choices, distorts priorities, and enslaves even the strongest minds. Machiavelli understood this well, for a ruler who could not control his treasury would never control his state. The same is true for an individual. A man who cannot govern his own wealth, cannot govern his own life. The danger begins subtly. Money whispers promises. It tells you that with just a little more you can rest. With just a little more you will be free. Yet, as soon as you chase it without discipline, you become its prisoner. People believe that poverty is chains, but in truth, undisciplined wealth is a far heavier chain. Poverty forces necessity upon you. You must be frugal, careful and inventive. But abundance without control blinds you, tempts you to spend carelessly, and convinces you that fortune will never end. In this way, wealth destroys more men than poverty ever could. Poverty humbles, but wealth intoxicates, and the intoxicated man cannot see the cliff he is walking toward. Discipline, then, is the shield against this intoxication. To master money, one must impose rules upon it, rules stronger than temptation. Consider the ruler who collects taxes, not to indulge himself, but to build fortresses, to pay soldiers, to strengthen his state. He spends strategically, not emotionally. Compare him to the ruler who spends on lavish feasts, golden halls, and the praise of flatterers. The first grows stronger with every coin, the second grows weaker, though his coffers seem full. The same principle applies to all of us. Wealth must be given a purpose, a structure, a discipline, or it will serve the wrong ends. A disciplined man treats money not as fire for burning, but as seeds for planting. Every coin he spends must either secure his safety, build his influence, or multiply into more. He does not measure wealth by what passes through his fingers, but by what remains to sustain him in storms. Discipline requires restraint, and restraint is the most difficult virtue, for the temptation of wealth is to prove itself by display. Most men would rather show their wealth than grow their wealth. They buy luxuries to impress others, forgetting that every coin wasted on vanity is a coin stolen from power. The disciplined man never forgets that appearances fade, but resources endure. Wealth tests character. Without discipline, money reveals greed, pride, and recklessness. With discipline, money reveals foresight, patience, and strength. This is why some inherit fortunes and lose them in years, while others start with little and build empires. It is not the amount that matters, but the master. A man can drown in a sea of gold if he has no discipline, just as another can thrive with modest means if he governs them wisely. Machiavelli would remind us that fortune favors the prepared, not the wasteful. To prepare, one must govern wealth like an army, organized, restrained, and ready to act when the time demands. Another danger of undisciplined wealth is dependency. Those who live as slaves to their spending are always at the mercy of those who supply them. They become beholden to creditors, manipulators, and patrons. They lose their independence, for the hand that feeds is the hand that rules. A man who lives beyond his means may appear wealthy, but in truth, he is the poorest of all, for he does not even own his own freedom. Discipline alone prevents this trap. To live within one's means, to save and build patiently, is to secure freedom. To chase excess without order is to invite chains. Consider also how discipline shapes perception. A disciplined man who manages wealth carefully earns respect, for others see him as stable, reliable, and capable of command. An undisciplined spender earns temporary admiration, but soon contempt, for his riches are seen as fleeting. History is filled with rulers and merchants who squandered wealth in spectacle, only to fall when the resources ran dry. But those who exercised discipline, who built reserves, who invested in strength, who prepared for lean years, outlasted their rivals. The lesson is timeless. Wealth without discipline is a candle in the wind. Wealth with discipline is a fortress of stone. Discipline also means knowing when to spend. It is not hoarding, nor is it miserliness. Hoarding weakens just as much as waste, for wealth unused at the right moment is wealth wasted. Machiavelli warned against both extremes. The disciplined ruler, or the disciplined man, knows that money is a weapon, and must be drawn at the proper time. Spend when it strengthens allies, when it secures victory, when it builds lasting influence. Do not spend merely for pleasure, nor hoard so tightly that opportunity passes you by. Discipline lies in balance, neither reckless indulgence nor fearful stagnation, but purposeful direction. The undisciplined wealthy man often believes he owns his fortune, but in truth his fortune owns him. He wakes and sleeps with anxiety, fearing its loss, craving its increase, but never controlling its flow. The disciplined man is different. He does not serve his wealth serves him. He gives it orders, and it obeys. He invests it, multiplies it, and deploys it with precision. He can walk into any room with confidence, not because of what he has, but because he knows he governs what he has. This is the essence of freedom. Wealth under discipline is power, but wealth without discipline is slavery in disguise. And so the truth stands: wealth must be mastered with iron discipline, or it will master you. It will seduce, it will deceive, it will erode your will until you serve it blindly. But if you impose rules upon it, if you resist the intoxication of display, if you see money not as a prize but as a tool, then wealth becomes an ally, a soldier in your army, a fortress under your command. Discipline transforms money from a master into a servant, from a temptation into a weapon, and in the end those who hold discipline over their wealth hold their destiny in their hands, while those who lack it are dragged helplessly by the very riches they once believed would set them free. People respect strength in financial matters, not sentiment. This truth is uncomfortable, because we like to believe generosity wins loyalty and compassion, secures admiration, but history and human behavior show us something different. People admire the strong, not the sentimental. They respect the one who controls his wealth with firmness, not the one who lets his heart guide his purse. Machiavelli understood that while generosity is praised in words, it is strength that is followed in practice. A leader, or even an individual, who spends freely to please others, is soon despised, because when his resources vanish, so does his influence. But the one who manages his wealth with rigor, who spends strategically, who shows discipline in both giving and withholding, this person is seen as powerful, dependable, and worthy of respect. The danger of sentiment in financial matters is that it opens the door to manipulation. When others know you can be swayed by pity, flattery, or guilt, you become a target for exploitation. You are no longer seen as wise, but as soft, and people learn to approach you not with respect, but with schemes. They will smile, flatter, and pretend loyalty, so long as your generosity flows. But when the money stops, their admiration turns to resentment, because they valued you not as a person, but as a source. Strength, however, is immune to this trap. The person who sets boundaries, who does not allow emotion to dictate every decision, teaches others to approach with seriousness. Respect comes not from how much you give, but from the certainty that you cannot be used. Sentiment also blinds judgment. A sentimental man may give in moments of weakness, only to regret it later. He spends to impress, to win affection, to soothe guilt, or to avoid conflict. But in doing so, he loses control of his wealth, and more importantly, of himself. Those who depend on him will not thank him, they will expect more. His generosity becomes invisible, while his refusal becomes offensive. He creates enemies by trying to buy friends. Machiavelli would argue that it is better to be feared for your strength than despised for your weakness, and in financial matters, this is especially true. A man who holds firm with his money may earn complaints, but he will also earn lasting respect. A man who gives too freely will be loved today and hated tomorrow. When he can give no more, Consider how societies treat the rich, the wealthy, who display strength in their financial dealings, those who negotiate firmly, who protect their assets, who invest wisely, are often criticized in words, but secretly admired. They are trusted because their discipline suggests stability. On the other hand, those who spend carelessly for attention or sympathy are quickly ridiculed when their fortunes decline. The world does not honor those who waste resources for sentiment. It honors those who use resources to build power, even if their methods seem cold. The truth is harsh. Generosity wins applause, but strength wins survival. Strength in financial matters does not mean cruelty. It means clarity. It means you decide where your wealth goes, not your emotions or the demands of others. It means you choose to invest in what builds security, influence, or growth, rather than scattering coins to prove kindness. People may not praise you for your restraint, but they will acknowledge your authority. They may not call you generous, but they will call you wise. And in time, those who once demanded your money will respect you more for refusing than for indulging them, even in families and friendships. This truth holds. A father who spends recklessly to spoil his children may think he is loved for his generosity, but often he raises entitlement and dependence. A father who manages wealth with strength, who teaches discipline, who invests in their future rather than fleeting pleasures, may face complaints, but he will ultimately earn respect. Friends who rely on your sentiment to fund their desires will vanish when your generosity ends. But those who witness your strength, who see that you cannot be swayed or used, will treat you with a deeper respect, even if they never admit it openly. Strength is also about consistency. A man who is strong in financial matters does not shift with mood. He is not generous today and miserly tomorrow. He is steady, predictable, and principled. People know what to expect from him, and that consistency builds trust. Sentiment, however, is unstable. It makes decisions on impulse, one day giving everything away, the next regretting it, and refusing even small kindnesses. This inconsistency weakens respect, because no one trusts a man who is led by emotion rather than discipline. In the realm of money, predictability is power. Furthermore, strength in financial matters is a safeguard against ruin. Many men have lost fortunes by chasing sentiment, giving in to every request, spending to maintain appearances, lending to those who never repay. They fall not because they lacked wealth, but because they lacked strength to say no. And when they fall, those who once praised their generosity rarely come to help. Strength prevents this downfall. It allows you to preserve resources for when they are truly needed, to invest in ventures that matter, and to withstand storms without being drained by the endless demands of others. People respect those who endure, not those who collapse under the weight of their own sentiment. Even enemies respect strength in money. A rival who knows you cannot be bribed or manipulated, who sees that you guard your wealth as carefully as your words, will approach you with caution. They may not like you, but they will respect you. A man ruled by sentiment, however, is easy prey. His enemies know they can tempt him, pressure him, or deceive him into surrendering what he should have kept. And once you are known as weak in financial matters, that reputation is almost impossible to erase. Strength builds an armor around you. Sentiment leaves you naked. Ultimately, people respect strength in financial matters because money represents survival, power, and stability. Those who treat it carelessly show themselves unfit to lead or to endure. Those who treat it with discipline, firmness, and resolve prove themselves worthy of command. Sentiment may win temporary affection, but affection fades with circumstances. Strength, however, leaves a lasting impression, because people recognize in it a quality that endures. They may complain about it, they may envy it, but they will respect it. And respect is more valuable than applause, for applause fades when the music stops, but respect remains when silence falls. The lesson is clear. Govern your wealth with strength, not sentiment. Give when it serves a purpose, not when it serves your emotion. Invest when it builds power, not when it buys affection. Refuse when refusal is necessary, for every refusal strengthens your authority. In the end, the world does not remember those who spent everything to please others. It remembers those who stood firm, preserved their resources, and built legacies that lasted. Sentiment may warm the heart, but strength secures the future. And in financial matters, it is the strong, not the sentimental, who command respect. True prosperity is not measured by what you spend, but by what you preserve and invest. This lesson cuts through the illusions that most people cling to about wealth. Society is filled with people who believe that prosperity is visible, that it must shine in cars, houses, clothes, and displays of luxury. They measure their success by how much they can spend in front of others, as if consumption were proof of greatness. But this is a shallow vision, a mirage that disappears when fortune shifts. Real prosperity is quiet, patient, and often invisible. It is found not in what leaves your hands, but in what remains with you, and what grows under your care. Machiavelli understood this truth. The ruler, who spends recklessly to show off power, soon weakens his state, while the ruler, who preserves and invests, strengthens his dominion for generations. Spending is easy. Anyone can do it. The poorest beggar, if given a purse of gold, can empty it in a week of indulgence. But preservation and investment require discipline, foresight, and strength of will. They require the ability to look beyond today's pleasures toward tomorrow's stability. Those who measure prosperity by spending are prisoners of the present. Those who measure it by preservation and investment become masters of the future. When you preserve wealth, you shield yourself against storm. When you invest it, you multiply its power, creating tools that work for you even as you sleep. This is the true nature of prosperity, not the fleeting pleasure of spending, but the enduring power of growth. The world is full of examples of those who confused prosperity with spending. Families that once lived in mansions now live in ruins because their fortune was wasted on appearances. Empires that once dominated the earth collapsed because their treasuries were emptied to fund excesses rather than defensive. On the other hand, history remembers those who understood preservation and investment. Merchants who reinvested their profits into trade routes became dynasties. Leaders who preserved resources for times of famine ruled longer than those who consumed all in years of plenty. Prosperity is not about what you can show in moments of abundance. It is about whether you endure when abundance fades. Investment, too, is more than just multiplying money. It is about directing resources into what brings strength, influence, and stability. To invest is to build something larger than yourself. It may mean financial investments that create income and security, but it also means investing in knowledge, in networks, in systems that outlast your own effort. When you invest in people who are capable and loyal, you strengthen your foundation. When you invest in skills, you ensure that even if money is lost, the ability to rebuild remains. Prosperity flows not from empty displays, but from wise planting, like seeds sown in fertile ground. The man who spends all his grain in feasting is praised today but starves tomorrow. The man who preserves seed for planting ensures abundance for years to come. Preservation is equally powerful. To preserve is to protect what you already hold, to guard it against erosion, decay, and waste. Many confuse preservation with stinginess, but they are not the same.
Stinginess is fear-driven refusal to spend even when necessary. Preservation is purposeful safeguarding, a deliberate act of strength. A ruler who preserves wealth for defense is not stingy, he is wise. A man who saves for his family's future is not miserly, he is strategic. Preservation ensures that wealth serves you across time, that it does not vanish in moments of weakness or indulgence. Without preservation, investment collapses. For what good is planting seeds if the harvest is consumed without thought? Another illusion of spending is that it buys respect. People often think others will admire them for their possessions, but admiration based on display is fragile. It disappears when the money runs out. Worse, it often turns into envy and contempt. True respect comes when others see that you are steady, resilient, and capable of maintaining prosperity without reckless show. A man who flaunts his wealth gains applause while he spends, but when he falls, he becomes a spectacle of mockery. A man who preserves and invests may not dazzle the crowd with extravagance, but over time, his quiet strength commands deeper respect. People recognize in him something lasting, something that cannot be taken away by a single turn of fortune. Machiavelli would argue that rulers who spend lavishly to win affection set themselves on a path to ruin. The affection they buy is shallow, and when the treasury runs dry, the same people turn on them. But rulers who preserve and invest, though they may be called cautious or even cold, maintain power far longer. For it is not affection that sustains rule, but resources. In the same way, in our lives, it is not applause or envy that sustains us, but the strength of what we have built and preserved. True prosperity is measured by whether we can withstand adversity, whether we can grow despite obstacles, and whether our wealth, however modest, works for us rather than against us. The discipline to preserve and invest requires seeing beyond illusion. It means recognizing that luxury often weakens, while restraint often strengthens. It means refusing the temptation to prove prosperity by spending, instead proving it by building. Every coin preserved, every investment made with foresight, is an act of power. Every reckless purchase, every indulgent display is an act of surrender. To live by appearances is to live at the mercy of others' opinions. To live by preservation and investment is to live at the command of your own will. Consider also how preservation and investment create freedom. A man who spends everything he earns is always chained to his next wage, his next transaction, his next source of money. He is never free, because his spending habits enslave him. But a man who preserves and invests builds independence. His money begins to work for him, his savings shield him from desperation, and his investments create opportunities. This is freedom, not granted by words or promises, but by the reality of resources. True prosperity is freedom, and freedom is born not from spending, but from preserving and investing. In the end, prosperity, measured by spending, is an illusion. It shines brightly for a moment, then vanishes. Prosperity, measured by preservation and investment, is quiet, but enduring. It creates stability, influence, and legacy. It allows you to endure hardship, to seize opportunities, to provide not just for yourself, but for those who depend on you. It secures respect, builds power, and grants freedom. To spend is to consume, to preserve is to endure, to invest is to grow, and it is in endurance and growth, not in consumption, that true prosperity is found. Those who understand this lesson build legacies. Those who ignore it leave behind nothing but ashes of forgotten wealth. And so, When all is said and done, the lessons are clear. Money is never just money. It is influence, power, and perception. It can lift you above others, or chain you beneath them, but unless it is managed with discipline, it will consume you. For wealth, without restraint, is no blessing, but a curse. People do not admire weakness in financial matters. They admire strength, firmness, and ability to command resources without being commanded by them. And true prosperity does not lie in how much you can spend to impress others, but in what you preserve, what you grow, and what you build to endure beyond the moment. Machiavelli would remind us that fortune favors not the reckless spender, nor the sentimental giver, but the one who uses wealth with precision, strategy, and control. To master money is to master one of the most powerful forces in human life. To squander it is to surrender your freedom. In the end, prosperity is not measured in applause, but in endurance, not in displays, but in legacies, not in coins scattered, but in foundations laid. The choice belongs to each of us, to be ruled by wealth, or to rule with it. Those who choose mastery shape their destiny. Those who do not are shaped by the wills of others. This is how money works, and those who understand it hold more than wealth. They hold power, freedom, and the keys to their future.